a balance of $513,000 at the end of the year. Debt service requirements on page 37. This is the amount of principal and interest that you need to pay on your bonds going forward. The 2015 number, you see the larger yellow there, that's because that TIF was that $65,000 need to be paid. You see how that gets smaller next year because obviously that's the last payment on it. The blue, which are your revenue bonds, I mentioned that's $425, and then your GO bonds, $210 a year. Comes down just slowly to $750,000 in 2018. Page 39, where have you spent your money the last 10 years? Of course, the orange in the middle was the 09 and 11 improvements. And then the blue was the levee improvement project in 11 and mostly 12. And then this year, of course, is the highway 43. All the other things that are done, the smaller equipment and what have you, is in that green part of the slide. $1,948,000 in capital outlay in 2014. Capital outlay fund, or capital improvement fund on page 40, went from just $91,000 to $1,057,000 this year. You now have over $1 million in your capital improvement fund. The reason for that is the reason it went down last year from 443 to 91 is some engineering costs for Highway 43 were paid out of this fund, and then when the funds came in this year, we were able to reimburse this fund, as well as all the FEMA receivables have been resolved. There are no longer any FEMA receivables. All the dollars have been collected, and some of those, of course, went into this fund. So you now have probably the most money you've ever had in your capital improvement fund, as you can see from the slide. TIF capital improvement fund, 10% of the dollars that come in go into this fund, so it just continues to grow. I'm not sure what it can be used on. I don't know what the intent is for that, but it will continue to grow. I mentioned, the levee improvement, we haven't talked about this one. Levee improvement fund, there are some engineering costs here that I believe the electric fund is going to help cover in 2015 that may alleviate this or even eliminate it, I'm not sure. So I believe this one is not an issue, this deficit, because the electric fund needs to pay back here. Okay, slide 44. This is complicated, but it's actually a little less complicated than it's been before. The do-to-do-froms are in pink. And do-to-do-froms are really considered short-term borrowing. We have a grant coming in next year, so you borrow and you get the money and just take care of it. Advances are in blue. They're longer term and they're a little more problematic. Sometimes they're problematic because it's going to take time to pay things off. When things take time to pay off, you never know where you're actually going to get the money. So let's talk about the pink ones. These are the ones that we believe are taken care of. Water, there's going to be the financing in 2015. We believe that will be taken care of. Sewer, there's a financing in 2015 as well as the fact that both in water and sewer, we're setting up these do-to-do-froms to some degree are a result of the fact that we have to show cash in those funds when they don't have cash because the bank, the bonds require that you have reserved cash to pay the bonds. So there is cash really to offset these. So the do-to-do-froms are not an issue. Community or levee improvement project, I said the dollars will come in from electric, and the airport has grant dollars coming in. So all the pink on the bottom I think we're good with. Then when we look at the blue, these are advances. The second one is an electric advance. Electric obviously has a long-term cash flow to repay the EDA revolving loan fund. So that's an advance, it's not an issue. The second one, however, the liquor store, is $169,000. It owes the general fund. It has no cash, has no repayment ability other than it owns one asset, and that is the building. So probably not an issue in that the value is most likely there to repay the general fund. I don't know what the plans are, but you should know that there is an advance from a liquor store that has a building in it and an advance due to the general fund, and that's all that's in that fund at this point. Probably, depending on the FEMA, there is most likely the ability to get your cash out of that and get the general fund paid back. The big one, though, as you see right in the middle of the page, is the $807,000 that the sewer fund owes the funds that you see listed in the first bullet. General fund, the the 2000 improvement project owes both the CIP and the debt service fund. Now, some of that is, of course, borrowing money to set aside for that restricted cash account that we need to set up every year. And then the electric of 300. The amounts to the improvement project are generally prepaid assessments that had the cash in there because the bond payments aren't due yet. Sewer fund will need to repay that eventually. But the 200 and the 300, what we talked about at our earlier meeting was the sewer fund, we're looking at increased rates there to help improve cash flow there. Between the 307,000 it owes the 2009 improvement project, it appears to me that probably it's, depending on what its capital needs are in the future, sewer fund most likely be able to pay that $307,000 back over time. That's the two in the middle, the 205 and the 102. I think it's highly unlikely it's going to get to the point, or it's going to be a long time before we can pay the general fund and electric fund back that $500,000. So essentially, what you could do, and what we talked about, is just transferring that money into the sewer fund and be done with it. When you do that in the general fund, the reason I emphasized this earlier, it does not impact that 35%. You got yourself back to at the low end of a healthy general fund reserve without the 200 in it. So it would not impact that if the general fund were to transfer those dollars. And basically, the way to think of it is the 200 grand went from the general fund to the sewer fund. It was recorded as a loan at the time. It could have been recorded as a transfer. Like, the money is yours, keep it. So, that's what we would do at this point. Reverse that and call it a transfer rather than a loan. The second thing that we'll get to is electric. We'll talk about that when we get to the other ones. It could also, the electric fund could do the same. Just one strategy that you should consider. My point is that when you see the sewer fund or where it's at, it would be a long time before this 500. It's just not, cash flow is simply not there. We hope it's there to pay this improvement project fund back. It seems very, very unlikely to me that you'll be able to pay the remainder back. And why am I bringing this up this year? It's because we never quite knew where all the FEMA stuff was going to shake out. And I think the idea every year was, why are we making this decision, what to do with this, these advances in sewer until we know exactly how everything shakes out with FEMA? Let's wait. So we waited, and we have everything is shook out with FEMA, and this is where we're at now with interfund balancing. There's not going to be any interfund borrowing. There's not going to be anything else that goes on with FEMA. So it is time to take a look at it. Other option is to take the sewer rates up even higher and pay the other two funds back. So I'll leave that up to you, and we'll look at it a little closer as we look at these enterprise funds, starting with electric on page 46. In each case, we're going to have the revenues and expenses on the top, and on the bottom we're going to have cash and debt. Revenue and expenses, revenue in the blue and the pink being, in this case, purchase power, gray being distribution administration, and then that leaves income in the yellow. There's some pretty significant increase in revenue since 2009, the electric fund, but not so much from 13 to 14, just a small increase. There was no rate increase in 2014. A little more power was used, so the purchase power cost is up.